Hi everyone, welcome to Monroe Street Church. We're a reconciling United Methodist congregation worshiping here at the corner of Monroe Street and South Cove. My name is Marilyn Dufour and I'm a member of the Neighborhood Connections team and Garden Committee at the church. In 2019, we were certified as a Sacred Grounds Wildlife Habitat by the National Wildlife Federation for installing native plant gardens in our landscape to benefit both wildlife and water quality, and for educating ourselves and our neighbors about the importance of these gardens. Today we're going to be looking at two gardens, both of them rain gardens. Rain gardens are gardens that are planted in a shallow depression that's strategically located to capture water from hard surfaces like sidewalks and roofs and parking lots and let it soak into the ground. When it does this, it reduces the amount of stormwater pollution that's picked up by that rainwater and carried into our local waterways. One of our reasons for doing this work and one of our reasons for standing here at the front of the church is that from this vantage point, we can see our nearest neighbor, the Ottawa River. The Ottawa River at one time was the most polluted river discharging into the Great Lakes. So by installing rain gardens as our native plant gardens, we had essentially three purposes. One, to be better stewards of the earth. Two, to be better neighbors to the Ottawa River. And three, to reduce our stormwater footprint by collecting the runoff from a big segment of our roof and encouraging it to soak into the ground. So we're going to begin our tour with the smaller of our two rain gardens, the first to be installed in 2007. And this rain garden drains one downspout. It's located between this side of the front entrance and the chapel, and basically comes down here and is directed into the back of the rain garden. Let's go take a look. As I mentioned before, we installed this rain garden in 2007. One of the first things that we had to do was figure out how to convey the water into the garden. And we did that by extending the downspout, tucked back in the corner, out to the end of the landscaping with PVC pipe, and then we added tile and buried that under the grass. It's not necessary to do that, but we did it to make the job a little easier for the people who help us maintain our property, so they wouldn't have obstacles that they would have to mow around. The water comes into the garden here, hits a small area of stone to help diffuse it, and then spreads out to most of the garden. Because it's shaped like a dish and flat on the bottom, the water is able to actually spread out. So this garden was constructed by our youth group, and they did it in a series of 4 work days, about 2 hours after church, for 4 consecutive weeks. They had to dig out a depression that was about 7 inches deep to accommodate the 1,000 square foot of roof water that the garden was going to receive. And they did that first with themselves after they removed the grass and found that was a very challenging task. They asked their parents and friends to join in, and we did. So it was a group effort. After we had constructed or planned for the garden, we invited the congregation to share in bringing in plants. So this garden was a combination of cultivated varieties and native plants. The native plants were purchased from a then locally available native plant nursery called Naturally Native Nursery. Today we use a new native plant nursery called Poppin' Up Natives, and also plants grown for us by the students of the Aerospace and Natural Science Academy of Toledo. And you'll see some of their plants in the other garden. But we tried to keep the flower donations to the colors of the liturgical year. That was the master plan. We were going to have them be purple and white and gold and red and also green, of course. And most people followed us, but we got some big orange daylilies and a few other plants that didn't quite fit the color scheme. But we also added some natives to it, and one of the natives we added was a plant called prairie cordgrass. We thought we would put it in the corner and let it be there in a nice little clump, but it's a spreader, and being rookies, we didn't know that. So in a couple of years, 2/3 of this garden was native prairie cordgrass. Not a good choice for a rain garden, just saying. So we removed that prairie cordgrass, rescued as many of the plants as we could, bought some more natives, and replanted it in 2017. And now you can see the result of that. So only 2 years ago, this whole thing was replanted. Here are some of the plants that you're seeing right now in bloom. At the front, black-eyed Susans, and then behind that, the purple-headed or purple coneflower. Then we put in kind of a pollinator layer. We have hoary and Virginia mountain mint, which we seem to observe the most variety of pollinators on, and bergamot, wild bergamot, which is the native bee balm, which is a favorite of our bumblebees. We see bumblebees on there all day long. And then behind it, we've put in a little pocket of swamp milkweed for the monarch butterflies, and at the back, New England aster, which will bloom and give this garden color in the fall. So in this particular garden, we haven't been very picky about what goes where. When we plant a plant, we try to plant it on one side and the other to kind of give it a loose symmetry, but we let the plants go where they want to. And that is what has happened with the blue vervain, the tall blue flower, and the white Culver's root that you can see. And I think it's given the garden a really nice texture to have them kind of sticking out all through the garden like that. We also have added a few grasses. Grasses are not real popular in the city, but we've tried this time to limit ourselves to ones that grow in tight little clumps. So we have some switchgrass, we have some little blue stem grass, and also a sedge, the fox sedge, which was one of the original plants in this rain garden. So this is the most visible of our garden, but it's kind of close to the street. So we've had a few mishaps where cars have ended up in the middle of it. And as you can see, it has recovered, and thankfully the people involved have recovered. But we needed a space that would be closer to the building and safer to use with the children that we work with here at Monroe Street. So we put in a second garden, and let's go take a look at that. It's important to note, in respect to both rain gardens, that we didn't do this alone. In putting in the first rain garden, we were able to get a small reimbursement grant from the Toledo-Lucas County Rain Garden Initiative. And in putting in this rain garden, we were able to get a mini grant from Sacred Grounds Toledo. And through the whole process, we had the complete support of the partners of those two very diverse partnerships. But we also had community members who stepped forward to help us. The forestry, City of Toledo Forestry Woodlot provided us with an endless supply of mulch, and Coleman Corporation helped with the tile, and many of our members helped with compost and tools and little expenses that we needed. So we really have created a community effort here. When we decided to do the second rain garden, we kicked things up a notch. So we decided that we were going to drain 3 downspouts from our roof over 3,700 square feet. And that would require a garden of about 1,200 square feet to collect the stormwater and help it soak into the ground. To do that, we needed a little more help. So we called in the troops. The Toledo Zoo teens, about 30 of them and their leaders, came over a period of about 2 months to help us dig out this rain garden to a depth of about 6 inches. And then our own social mission and social action team and garden committee chipped in along with our super volunteer, Ken. And we were able to get it done beginning in June, and by September we were ready to dedicate. It wasn't completely planted, but everything was installed by that point. We also decided to do something a little bit different with this garden. We wanted to try to make it a more urban-friendly garden with a little bit of curbside appeal. So instead of putting in plants wherever and allowing them to go wherever, we actually organized this garden using this template from the Sacred Grounds Sample Pollinator Garden Designs packet. And we had to modify it a little bit based on plant availability. We cut off kind of one side here to accommodate the sidewalk. We put taller plants toward the building, shorter plants toward the sidewalk, so it's not completely symmetrical. But by putting all of those plants in large groups like that, we've been able to maintain it much more easily. It's really easy to tell what belongs in the garden and what doesn't belong in the garden. It does make it a little more work to maintain those big clumps of plants, because these plants do like to go wherever they like and look for the best possible spot to grow. So we do spend a lot of time in the spring transplanting plants to other gardens, moving them to other areas. But you can see that what we have here is basically a symmetrical garden, with the exception of the plant sizes on either side. And it has been really, really easy to maintain. We do it with 1 or 2 people. So, so what you're seeing in bloom right now are, in front, the butterfly milkweed, and the swamp milkweed, the pink. These are the things that we've put in to help support the monarch butterflies, along with a lot of different nectar plants. On the far side, we put in New England aster, which is a fall blooming plant, and across the back stiff goldenrod. The New England aster can get 5 feet tall, but it doesn't here because it's a favorite of our deer. The good news is, because they eat it, it gets more shrubby and puts out a lot more bloom, so it'll be really beautiful in the fall. On the inside, coming in from the outside edges, we have dense blazing star, the tall purple spike. We have cardinal flower, a favorite of our hummingbird that shows up every now and then. And in the middle, we have bergamot. So only 7 or 8 kinds of plants, and that really, really helps us with the maintenance. On this end, on the sidewalk, we've put in purple coneflower and great blue lobelia. Shorter plants, but they like their spots, so they get fairly tall, actually. So it's been a really a joy for us to be able to put in the garden and to watch it develop. We're still working on what to do with the back. One of the other goals we had for this garden was to reduce our lawn. So we're in the process of killing all the grass behind the garden, and someday we will do something with that once we know that we've successfully killed the grass. We've thought about putting in a meadow or some kind of grass. We've thought about putting in native shrubs, which will bloom earlier and help our pollinators out early in the spring. We've thought about just letting the garden do its thing to the back and make its own little wildlife meadow back there. So we're still in debate about that, but whatever we do, we know it's going to have a benefit to us and to our community. So we just want to say that being a part of Sacred Grounds Toledo has really helped us to live into our vision, which is to deepen faith, to engage our neighborhood, and to become an inclusive community. And we're really glad that part of that inclusive community is the wildlife and pollinators that share our neighborhood with us and support us on this earth. So thanks for listening.